Okay, this video is on how to draw an average proportion or proper proportions for a human face. If you watch the human figure drawing video, you would know that the human face starts with an oval, not a circle. So I'm going to start with a fairly large oval here so you can see a lot of this information. Okay. So like I said, oval, not a circle. It's taller than it is wide. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, let me darken this line a little bit. I'm going to go in and I'm going to draw the center line, which should go right through the nose and mouth eventually, and then also the eye line. Both of these will be at halfway. So the center line, I'm going to kind of keep this as like a dotted line, should go right through the center this way, and then the eye line should go right through the center this way. Now I know probably a lot of you are thinking that this looks a little bit low to be the eye line. You're like, yeah, eyes aren't really at halfway. But what a lot of people disregard, when they're drawing the human face, they just draw from here to here, like from the end of your hairline to your chin. But when you look at the front of someone's face, you can obviously see some of the hair on the top of their head. So we are going from the very tip top of their head to the bottom of their chin. And if you look at that, then the eyes certainly do end up at halfway. So after the center line, eye line, we're going to go ahead and do the hairline, which should be like pretty close to the top, somewhere up there. And then this guy will be the nose line, about halfway between the eyes and chin. So that halfway I'd say is like right there. Now when you go to do the lips are not halfway from the nose to the chin. They're a little bit higher than halfway. If you go all the way halfway down, it tends to look like they have like a long upper lip or something funny. Okay. So those are all the horizontal divisions I need. Now we're going to do two vertical eye lines. Those make sure that the eyes don't end up too close or too far apart. So I'm going to do a vertical eye line on this side over here and a vertical eye line over here. So you want to try, my spacing now that I look at it from a distance is not perfect, but you want to try to get them to be equal distance from the center and also kind of equal distance from the edge, make sure they're not uneven. At this point we can actually start drawing in facial features. So I might move you guys a little bit closer here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start, it's very difficult to draw two eyes that look exactly the same, and that's because people are kind of starting with a difficult shape. You know, the outside of the eye doesn't necessarily look like a football. It kind of has like a much more detailed sort of line to it. And trying to draw two of those that are exactly the same but opposite is a little bit, it's tough. So what we do is we start from the inside of the eye. You actually start with the iris, which is the colored part of the eye. And then you sort of build the eyelid on top of the iris. So all we have to do right now is we just have to draw two circles the same size, okay? Our placement is already there. We're just going to draw them where the vertical eye line hits the horizontal. So I'm going to do one eye on this side, one eye on this side. Now these eyes would probably be fairly large in association with this face. You know what? Maybe they're a little too large. I'm going to make those a little smaller. But if you're drawing somebody who's youthful, like a child or something like that, then you kind of do want their eyes to look big in comparison to their face. Whereas if you're drawing someone who's elderly, their skin kind of sags and their eyes look a little bit smaller, okay? All right, anyway, so what we're gonna do is we are going to draw the pupil, which is the little black dot on the inside of the eye. Draw them in the same place, same size on both eyes, shaded in dark, so you know it's gonna be the pupil. All right, now, we are going to actually build the eyelid over the eye. If you look at anybody's eye who's like, you know, has just like a normal look on their face, is not like super surprised, their eyelid will overlap their iris, okay, which is the colored part again. Unless somebody's like super surprised, only then would you see like that above their iris. So really, I think it's just like, even if someone is surprised, well, yeah, maybe you do see above my iris. I don't know. Anyway, so if you want them to look surprised, you can go there. But for now, let's just draw one that overlaps so I can show you what to do with that way. So we're going to start with a diagonal line that just kind of goes from the top of the eye and kind of dips toward that center line. Try to make these two lines already kind of look the same position, the same angle. Because if you start with each line looking similar, it's going to end up with two eyes that look similar, okay? Now what this diagonal line is going to do is it's actually going to chop off, it's going to chop off the top of the eye. So that diagonal line is going to just chop right through here. And then on this side, it's going to chop right through here. And then, so you can obviously see I'm covering up the top of that iris. Now, eventually down the road, you would actually erase that area, but for the sake of this practice drawing, let's just leave it in so you remember later that it's supposed to be there. All right, and then on the outside, you're gonna curve down to meet that eye line. So I'm gonna go over here, curve curve down, okay? All right, now on the bottom of the eye, we're gonna start with the tear duct, which is the little pink thing in the corner of your eye. So I'm gonna start with like a tiny little fish hook here, and then like a tiny little fish hook here. That's like the tear duct. And then from here, we're gonna do kind of like a wavy line. This is kind of hard to get right for most people. But anyway, it's gonna slightly go up in this area. It's gonna dip underneath the iris. You don't even need to touch the iris, but if your iris is really large, you can just kind of skim along the bottom. And then you're gonna curve up to meet that eye at the corner. So it kind of slightly goes up and then down and back up, okay? All right, so this guy over here is gonna go up, slightly down and back up, okay? So there is the shape of my eye. You can obviously see that the shape of the eye varies a lot from just a basic football shape, and that the eyes look somewhat similar. So I'm gonna erase this guy up here just so you can see what it should look like when you get done. Now you want to define the tear duct with just one little curve inside there, so it kind of divides the tear duct from the rest of the eye. At this point, we're gonna do an eyelid, which if your eye is open, you kind of have that little crease above your eye, where if it's closed, you don't see the crease so much, okay? So like, I'm just gonna draw like a little hill above this eye and a little hill above that eye. So there's our eyelids. And then your eyebrow's gonna be a little bit higher than that. In fact, if you wanna take the eyes and head upward kind of on an angle, the eyebrow should be just a little bit wider than the eye. In order to draw two eyebrows that are the same width also, you're gonna have to draw the bottom line of the eyebrow first. So don't get into like, the entire shape of the eyebrow. But anyway, we're just gonna draw the bottom line first. So it's gonna go up on a slant and then down on a slant. And I'm gonna go to this side and try to make it look exactly the same. Up on a slant, down on a slant. It seems like one of my eyebrows always looks higher than the other one. So I guess it just takes some doing and some practice if you want them to look the same. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw a diagonal line at the center. Diagonal line at the center. I'm realizing when I look back at this that my eyes are kind of close together in general, but that's okay. Some people's eyes are close and some people's are far. So they kind of vary from person to person. After you draw your diagonal line, you're just gonna connect the top of that over to the outside corner. I haven't really stated this yet, but I think I'm gonna do a male and a female side on this face. So this is gonna be the male side over here, and this is gonna be the female side. So a female eyebrow, they tend to like trim and tame their eyebrows to where they look a little bit slimmer, a little bit neater. Whereas a male eyebrow might be a little bit thicker, and it might have like a little bit more of like a kind of a jagged edge where it looks a little bit less tamed. Again, I'm sorry, I feel like my eyes are just really big and kind of close together. Usually eyebrows are not that close together, but anyway, I'm just gonna move that guy out a little bit just for the sake of this drawing not being super hideous. Okay, all right, moving on from there. So now we're gonna draw the nose. I think people overcomplicate the nose. The nose is kind of like a less is more type deal. So we're gonna do just like a U shape for the tip of the nose. And then we're gonna draw the nostril on each side. It's gonna look like a C and then a backwards letter C. And then you can like darken in the nostril at the bottom a little bit. The nostril should really just look kind of like the shape of like a little lima bean. Obviously you don't wanna do like big gaping nostrils or you'll kind of look like a pig or something like that. Okay, now we're gonna do the tip of the nose like defined. So you're just gonna do a curve that goes like the opposite direction and it'll kind of make it look like the tip of the nose is sort of protruding out at you. The bridge of the nose, which is like the part that brings your nose up to meet your eyebrow, is actually only gonna go on one side. Because really what you're drawing is you're drawing a shadow, which should mainly be on like one side or the other. So there's the bridge of my nose. Now I'm gonna draw the mouth. The mouth starts with kind of like a letter V, so I'm just gonna draw like a little baby V right here. And then I'm gonna transform that into a letter M. So I'm gonna draw like a mountain peak on each side. It's important that you should not make the mouth go wider than the pupil, which is the little black dot in your eye. If the mouth goes out wider, they tend to look really creepy, which is why the Joker, like how his mouth continues all the way, that's why he looks so creepy. It's kind of unnerving to see a mouth that wide. The Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland also has a really wide, creepy kind of smile. Okay, so anyway, later on what you do is you would like erase the straight line under the nose. You could erase the straight line in the mouth. But if you want to leave them in for your practice sketch, so you remember that they're there, you can leave them in. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a dip for the top lip and a little bit bigger dip for the bottom lip. Now, the last thing we could all do, boys and girls, is just kind of darken the corner of the mouth with like a little triangle shape there. So basically, if you're doing any lips without lipstick, this is what the lips would look like. Lips are usually only like a shade or two darker or lighter than the skin tone. Some people that vary. Some people have like really, really red lips and, you know, it's different from their skin, or really dark lips or really pale lips. But for the most part, they're pretty close to your skin color, so we don't define the edges. If you do define the edges, they tend to look like someone is wearing lipstick. So if that's something that you want to go for, that look, you can. So I think I'm going to do lipstick lips on this side over here. I'm just going to take this line, continue it up and into the corner, and then I'm going to take this line and continue it up into the corner. So if you wanted somebody wearing lipstick, you would do those lips on both sides. If you want somebody without, you're going to do those lips on both sides, okay? All right. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw the neck. Again, if you saw the drawing of the human body video, you would know that the neck kind of has to curve outward as opposed to curving inward. That makes the neck look more muscular and more realistic. So when you're drawing the neck, I don't want it to dip in. I don't want it to be perfectly straight like a 2x4. I want it to come out a little bit like this, just slightly, okay? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw in like really quick shoulders so you can see sort of how the shoulders connect. Oh, I've raised my M up there. So the shoulders usually slant down or slope down from there. So you can have those guys come down on an angle. Later on you could draw, you know, shirts, hoodies, details like that coming in this area. But for right now you can just leave it. One more thing I want to do before we move on from here is I want to show you how to square up someone's jawline. Most people, especially that are grown up, you can kind of see a little bit more definition in their jaw. If you leave it rounded, they tend to look like a really youthful kind of like baby face. All right, so we're going to go over from the edges of the mouth with a diagonal on this side and a diagonal on that side. So pretty much just try and go straight out from the edge of the mouth. And then there is going to be our corner. That's going to be kind of like the corner where your jawbone kind of hooks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a straight line coming down from the eye to that zone. And then I'm going to draw one on the other side. And then I'm going to draw in like a chin. So I'm basically just going to flatten out a little area for the chin directly underneath there. And I'm going to draw another straight line to connect. And another straight line to connect right there. Now obviously I'd want to go in and like kind of clean up these edges and erase and get rid of some of that extra stuff. So that's kind of what the squared or sculpted jaw looks like. If you want to go in and kind of round up these corners even, you could kind of smooth those up to make it look a little bit more rounded. So that's basically the shape of the face. Now we're going to draw in the ears. Your ears should line up from the top of your eye, should be like the top of your ear, or I'm sorry, just like the center of your eye to the top of your ear, and then your nose should line up to the bottom of your ear. Unless somebody like puts their head down, their ears will look higher, or if you turn your head up like that, your ears will look lower. But for the most part, they go from the eye to the nose. Don't draw them too round or you'll look like a monkey. Okay. Of course, ears vary. Some people have, you know, really tiny petite ears, and some people have large ears. So if you were drawing someone and you wanted it really specifically to look like them, you could change the ears. Okay, now we're going to draw the hairline. Everybody, including people, you know, 7th, 8th grade, want to draw a hairline that just floats up here at the top, where like they only have hair on the top of your head. But obviously people have hair on the sides of their head and the back of their head. So what we're going to do, I'm going to draw a male hairline and a female hairline. The difference between the male and the female hairline is the sideburn. Boys have their hair cut kind of straight right here to make it look like a square sideburn, where girls' hair is a little bit longer and you can kind of like loop it behind your ear. So ladies, if you want to just bring your hairline straight over, unless girls you have some sort of haircut that looks like that, which sometimes happens, you can draw that in. Now we're going to draw a bunch of different kinds of hair. So basically the rule is with hair, is that if you drop below the hairline or go above the hairline, you have to erase the hairline, okay? If you're drawing like a boy with hair that kind of spikes up in this zone, you don't have any erasing to do because you're inside the hair, okay? It's only when you leave the hair that you have some erasing to do. So like, if I was drawing a boy that had, you know, kind of like hair that comes down under the forehead like this, then I would erase the hairline because it's dropping below the hairline or it's covering up the hairline. Ladies, same thing for you if you have bangs. You can kind of like bring that hair down, you know, like maybe even they're longer bangs and they kind of like cover up an eyebrow or something like that. and then you'd erase the hairline as well. The only reason you'd need to put a hairline back